Okay, so this is my first attempt at one of these walnut and epoxy coffee tables. I don't think it's going to come out so good. I'll tell you where I am. All right. So I got a slab. I cut some of the edges off of it. I filled in a bunch of the voids, like in the middle, with epoxy. And then I haven't seen this done yet, so this is why I'm putting this video up. The table's, of course, not even done. But all I wanted to do was add some to this end and over here. I didn't want to totally encase the table. In other words, I want one flat end over here. It's going to go against my couch, and this end I'm going to keep kind of wavy like this. So I figured if I poured an entire thing of epoxy, it would go under the table and it would go to this side, and I'd need like twice as much. So I'm not sure if this is going to work out, but here's what I did. So the side that I really wanted to make sure was right was this edge and over here. So I made sure that this and this were exactly the angle I wanted and exactly set back from where the slab ends. I wanted just a little bit of epoxy down in that corner. Then what I did was, before I put down the slab, I took some caulking and I made pretty much like a channel. I caulked the bottom like a big horseshoe shape, so that anything that went under the table would hit up against that caulking and not be able to come all the way under the table. Then what I did, not so well on this end, unfortunately, was try to box this off. If I had this to do again, I would have been a little more thorough. I would have just ended it right there, because I wasn't so thorough over here and it leaked. So my first pour, I put a little shim under the table, so it was pitched a little bit that way, or underneath the form. And that side filled up great, but I was about a quarter of an inch lower over here because some of the epoxy, as you can see, drained and leaked under probably a table and leaked under here. So I poured a second pour. I did it before it completely hardened. The second pour also was about maybe like a 1/16 of an inch lower. And I really want to try to avoid I don't have any way of flattening the slab. I mean, I can make a jig and, the whole thing that I've seen a million people do. I prefer not to do that if I don't have to. I prefer to just sand it, cut the edges off and just sand it. So I actually put a third pour. I used a little bit and I filled it in. Now the third pour, I don't know exactly what happened, but it looks like there's some bubbles or some irregularity against the edge here. Now, this is clearly, the pour below this was perfect and it was flush. The only reason I actually added extra epoxy over here is because there was a void down at that end. And I did a pour and it stopped right here. And I said, you're going to see a line between where one ends and one begins. So I came back with some more while it was still wet. And I went all the way down here. There were no bubbles or anything when I originally poured this. I don't know exactly what this is, but I do know that I should be able to sand this completely flush. And a lot of this is not necessary. A lot of this is higher than the wood is. So that's where I am. This has been sitting for a day and a half. I'm going to give it 3-4 days to cure. It's that epoxy. And then hopefully, when I take this out, I'll be able to sand the whole thing and make it completely, flush all the way from one end to the other. Hopefully this is not a big bear to get rid of this, which I didn't want in here. And then hopefully it's not going to stain the side black. If it is, I'm going to have to just take a 1/16 of an inch of the walnut away. So that's where we are. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if anybody's interested, but this was my attempt at just boxing part of this, not the entire thing. All right, and this wound up being probably the slab's about 2.5 inches thick. So I want to say for about 8 liters of epoxy. All right, so that's where we are. Sorry if this is not your thing or you're not interested, but we'll let you know we'll see what happens in a couple of days when I take this apart. Thanks for watching.